But the real victims weren't the people just traveling in there and going, wow, look at what happened here in California. It looks terrible. The victims were the people from the communities that had to somehow navigate and still have to navigate these crime-ridden neighborhoods and get their children safely to school and make their payments every month, these ridiculous payments, because mortgages are through the roof and they can't, keep up with inflation. These are the real victims of California, but they can't seem to overcome that vote that continually goes for the Democrats. I mean, someone like Newsom, that guy is an embarrassment. He's an embarrassment. How is he governor? The purpose of government is to protect our liberties and to keep law and order. But in so many parts of the country now, the political left now openly sides with criminals. And we know that. We know that because we've seen it in Oakland, in San Francisco, in Chicago, in New York City. It doesn't matter. You want to squat in someone's house, go ahead and squat, because apparently the person that owns the house is going to be arrested. Yeah, the person that owns it, not the squatter, not the one that went in it, right? If you steal up to, $900 or $1,000, walk out of the store. Fine. Remember that? California, everybody was walking in, just loading up. Walmart, CVS, businesses are closing. In Oakland, the In-N-Out Burger closed. I can't even begin to tell you. That's like a California staple. When you have so much crime that you have to shut down the In-N-Out Burger in a neighborhood, that's pretty sad, because the community is losing out on businesses, on jobs, on a future. And, as California goes, that's a hint of who is going to be coming up on this podcast as California goes. We're living in a time where police are demonized, lawmakers are passing legislation ending cash bail, and the George Soros, driving me crazy, backed prosecutors let violent criminals just go back onto the streets to terrorize neighborhoods. This is the world that we are living in right now. And we started to see all of these events transpire. Yes, we did. But we ignored them. We ignored them just like we ignore our children sometimes, who are going to the university and taking every single class with a radical leftist Marxist professor and thinking, well, this is just how universities are. It's kind of a liberal institution. Nothing's going to happen. That is until generations later, we have 50% of America. I hope not, probably a little less than that. But we have a good number of people in this country that don't idealize a republic anymore based on the common principles founded in our Constitution, but have basically taken control, weaponized our system, and have become radical leftists on a mission to turn this country inside out. And this is not just, I'm not just talking about the rise of crime in big cities, but also how the political left just coddles illegal immigrants as well, that are illegal aliens, people that are like violating the law. You all saw the video. People rushing across the border. We've seen this over and over again. We've seen this so many times. And every time we see it, we're like, whoa, did we see that? What's going on at the border? Well, what's going on at the border is that Biden and his cronies have weaponized the border against us. I always talk about weaponization being part of a foreign adversary's action. Well, I'm telling you right now, I believe that the Biden administration is weaponizing the border against the American people. How crazy is that? An American president who spends more time targeting a former US president and utilizing his political cronies to basically focus in on one guy, that's President Donald John Trump, instead of the real issues that we're facing in our society today, which is literally dividing our country in two and tearing our nation apart. And not only are they just hyper-focused on President Trump. They're hyper-focused on leaving that border wide open. They're hyper-focused on ensuring that our major metropolitan cities, as well as our rural communities, are riddled with crime, and that you and I have nothing to say about it. You and I are just going to sit back and just take it. Just take it. Because guess what? No matter how many stories I've written, no matter what we have done publicly to expose the criminal networks in our government, those criminal networks are never held accountable. And I totally understand all of your frustration because I read your comments all the time on that. How did this happen, though? How did this happen? How did the Democratic Party become the party of the bad guys? How is it that we are living in a country that does not resemble what our founding fathers had established? This beautiful, beautiful Constitution, this Bill of Rights that believes and puts freedom in the center of everything. How is it that freedom is not cool anymore to these radical leftists, to people in our country? How is it that people are buying the message of the radical left? That's just what's so insane to me. Even like the 33% in the polling that still supports President Biden, that's just so crazy to me. Like, why? What is it about him? Is it his inflation? Is it his insanity? Is it the puppet master working behind him? How is it that we came to this point? I remember when I lived there after coming back from Saudi Arabia as a kid, and my dad passed away. My mom moved back into our old house. We stayed there, of course, until I came to Washington, D.C. I lived in California. And I watched as this beautiful state, which, by the way, environmentally is gorgeous. The geography, the topography, drive down Pacific Coast Highway and just look at the beauty of that state. It's incredible. Northern California. I remember even when I lived in the Inland Valley, it's like kind of the armpit. Yeah, it's really hot in the summer. That's what we called it, the armpit in the Inland Valley. But you could go from the Inland Valley to the mountains in the winter and be skiing in like a few hours. Go up to Mammoth or Arrowhead or Big Bear. You could go down to the beach in 45 minutes. It had everything. People came from all over the world. Every time there was a Rose Bowl parade, California's population increased. That's not like that anymore. And it's not because the state isn't beautiful. It's because the state has been run for decades now by radical leftists and have been put into office by radical leftist residents who, for some reason or another, don't believe in you, don't believe in America the way that it was, the way that it could be, who have this self-determination to change the rest of the nation to reflect them. And by the way, so many, thankfully, people have left California. It actually lost a seat. So many people have left California because they can't live under Gavin Newsom's radicalization of that state. And we saw what happened with COVID. I watched it in my own neighborhood. As the years went on, as the crime increased, as we faced all kinds of issues, overtaxation, inflation, crime, police departments that were under-resourced, schools that were under-resourced, gang activity. It's tough. My guest on the show is talk show host Larry Elder. Larry Elder, folks, and he has seen this nightmare play out in his home state of California. And he is warning you that this is what is going to happen in your community, in your state, in your nation, if you do not confront this destructive ideology, challenge it headfirst. Do not allow it to exist. Do not allow it to breed in your community. Do not allow it to spread like a virus. You are going to be empowered today by Larry Elder. But first, let's talk about My Pillow. My Pillow has deals, 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 and more for all the listeners of the Sarah Carter Show. First, your Giza Dream Sheet sale. You could get queen size sets for $59.98. You just can't beat that. Queen size sets for $59.98. King size sets for only $69.98. Remember, use promo code Carter, C-A-R-T-E-R at checkout to get access to these great deals and so much more. Also, they have everything, guys. If you've got a pet like I do, I've got 4 dogs, and guess what? All 4 of them have My Pillow pillows, and they sleep like angels on them. Macy May Buttercup, she's under my desk. She's sleeping, she's snoring. I know she's good, right? And all because of Mike Lindell. Also, Mike Lindell has so many more gifts and so many more products to offer, like your Giza, not just your Giza Dream Sheets, but your My Pillow slippers, your My Pillow pillows, your My Pillow mattress toppers. I can go on and on and on. Go to mypillow.com/Carter or call 1-800-685-7221 today to get the Giza Dream Sheets queen size for $59.98 or king size for $69.98. Call 1-800-685-7221 or go to mypillow.com/Carter, C-A-R-T-E-R, promo code Carter, C-A-R-T-E-R. Again, mypillow.com/Carter, promo code Carter. I'm so happy to have Larry Elder. It's such an honor, AKA the sage from South Central. I have something to talk to you about that because I spent some time in South Central as a kid, and I wanted to talk to you about that. I did some volunteer work there at a church, a Lutheran church. I loved it. I used to go to BB's on the Strip. I don't know if you remember that. Do you remember BB's?
I do.
Is it still there? I don't even know.
I don't think so.
Oh God, that was the best soul food in all of America. It was the best barbecue, best everything. So I'm going to get into that a little bit more, but you're the host, of course, the widely syndicated Larry Elder Show. Everybody loves you. I mean, it's phenomenal. I call you a phenom on radio, best-selling author and award-winning documentary filmmaker. And you have this incredible book, which I think the title is absolutely a God's truth. As goes California, my mission to rescue the Golden State and save the nation. Because as goes California, the rest of the nation goes, Larry. And
absolutely. You know, Sarah, I've often said that every bad idea in Washington, D.C. has been tried twice already in California. There's a magazine called CEO Magazine, and it looks at taxes, regulation to determine whether or not your state is a business-friendly or a business antagonistic state. Every single year, California is ranked the worst state in which to do business out of all 50. We had a $1.5 trillion, not billion, trillion dollar unfunded pension liability. When you look at all the government pensions, we've had a net loss of population of almost a million people in the last 3 years. We have rising crime in many categories. Our schools are ranked near the bottom, even though we're spending more K through 12 than ever before. Those are just some of the things that are going on. We have a massive homeless population. We have a very high percentage of people who are poor, among the highest in the nation. And we have more homeless people than any other state in the nation. And all of this is at the hands of the Democrats. You cannot blame Republicans because Democrats have a supermajority in both houses, in the Senate and the state assembly. There hasn't been a Republican elected statewide in California, I kid you not, Sarah, in 20 years. So you can't blame it on Democrats. It's Republicans. And regarding Gavin Newsom, this guy has his fingerprints on every bad idea in California in the last several decades. Remember, he was a 2-term mayor of San Francisco. He was a 2-term lieutenant governor of California. And now he's in his 2nd term in California. And under his watch, we've had homelessness, we've got crime, we have massive influx of illegal aliens because California, of course, is a sanctuary state. And as I said earlier, people are leaving. We've lost a congressional seat because of the loss of population here in California.
I know. I think that was such a shock. I mean, not a shock to me because I left California a while ago and it was mainly just for the job market to move to Washington, D.C. But I grew up there. I mean, my mom, when we came back from Saudi Arabia, that's where we lived. My mom said she was never going to leave California, but she just watched it. I watched it just go downhill. I mean, with policies that were basically implemented by the Democrats. And I remember my mom worked in a factory, Larry. She worked hard. That woman worked harder than any woman I know, other than other people's parents who worked in factories. She was the hardest worker, Cuban immigrant. And she would go to the factory. And I remember it was always during elections, even if it was in LA or if it was statewide. And she would say to other workers that were with her, mostly Hispanic, Latino from all over, she would say, why are you going to vote in the same crooks we were all trying to leave from our nations? Like, I left Cuba because we didn't want communism. We didn't want the lies anymore. We were done with it. And my mom left in the 1960s on those freedom flights, and she was a political prisoner for a short term. And then she would look around and say, why are we doing this? Why? How do you think this happened, Larry? I mean, California, it became a magnet for radical leftists. Was it Hollywood? What was it? Yeah. Was it just immigration flow?
It's Hollywood. It's these elites, the top 1%, who don't have to bear the brunt of their stupid policies. The average price of a home in California, Sarah, is twice that of a national average. And the number one reason that people cite when they leave California is they cannot afford the price of a home. The people who are getting it in the shorts are the middle class people and working class people, because wealthy people remain wealthy, even though taxes are onerous. We have the highest state income tax in the nation, 13.3%. And the people who are at the very bottom have all sorts of social programs. It's the people in the middle class who are getting it the most by these elite people who pass these stupid bills or policies that essentially consider criminals to be victims of society. Gavin Newsom supported Proposition 47, famously allows you to steal almost $1,000 per day. And if you get caught, you've committed a misdemeanor that writes your ticket. You have zero chance of going to jail because we have cashless bail. What people don't talk about is that 47 downgraded a bunch of categories from felonies to misdemeanors. Now, if you're doing meth on the streets openly, you've committed a misdemeanor, and the police can no longer say either go to rehab or go to jail. Now they just laugh at you and say, or what? Also, Proposition 57, that Gavin Newsom also supported, downgraded a lot of categories of crime from violent offenses to non-violent offenses. So now assault on a police officer is a non-violent offense. Serial arson is a non-violent offense. Rape of an intoxicated victim is now a non-violent offense. I kid you not. And of course, he supported these soft on crime DAs like Chesa Boudin, who even the people in San Francisco recalled. Only about 5% of people in that town are Republicans. Even they got fed up with this guy. And of course, we've got George Gascon here in LA County. There have been 2 failed attempts to recall this guy. So all these people are people that Gavin Newsom supported. Gavin Newsom got his first job from, George Gascon got his first job from Gavin Newsom. He appointed him DA of San Francisco, and then he came down to LA County and ran for DA, and unseated, by the way, a black female, the first black female DA we had in LA County, because apparently she was not soft enough on crime for these lefties who voted her out.
Let's talk about that, because as goes California, so does the rest of the nation, Larry. And when I was in Oakland, and you know how many times I've traveled to California to cover segments for Sean's show on Fox. And I mean, to the point where I just could not believe what I was seeing. And I would have to explain to people, no, I'm telling you, this is how it is. I would get to Oakland, but the real victims weren't the people just traveling in there and going, wow, look at what happened here in California. It looks terrible. The victims were the people from the communities that had to somehow navigate and still have to navigate these crime-ridden neighborhoods and get their children safely to school and make their payments every month, these ridiculous payments, because mortgages are through the roof and they can't, keep up with inflation. These are the real victims of California, but they can't seem to overcome that vote that continually goes for the Democrats. I mean, someone like Newsom, that guy is an embarrassment. He's an embarrassment. How is he governor? I mean, I was praying for you. I was like, please, God, if you get Larry Elder in, I will move back. But, how is that happening?
And Sarah, when have you heard an In-N-Out Burger being shut down? The one in Oakland has now been shut down.
It's so sad.
Because of the rising crime. We just now passed a bill, and Gavin Newsom signed it, to increase the minimum wage to $20 an hour, the highest in the nation. And immediately after that bill went through, Pizza Hut laid off 1,500 drivers, saying that they could no longer afford them. Meanwhile, Panera Bread, whose founder and CEO is a friend of Gavin Newsom, has been exempted from the $20 minimum wage thing. So talk about corruption. All of this is going on. Beautiful state, beautiful people, beautiful natural resources, horrible, horrible government.
Right. Horrible, horrible government. And you're not giving up because you really have a point. I mean, California is kind of setting the standard for the rest of the nation. We're seeing that. We're seeing that across the country with these DAs, these Soros-backed DAs that are really soft on crime, that are turning our communities into something out of like a Batman comedy saga. I'm like waiting. Are you going to get the bat cape? Larry, you got to come out and you're like, we're going to like have the big signal in every city. Like, it's like Gotham. It's so crazy, right? I mean, we're looking at a nation that is fundamentally changing. And we have all of these people with common sense, like you and others who are outspoken, who are influencers, who are politically savvy, and who are doing everything to shed light on the insanity. Yet the insanity seems to increase like a virus. I want to know, where is the inoculation? When are we going to get inoculated against this virus?
We put the woe in woke. Gavin Newsom set up a panel for reparations. He's a more climate change extremist than even Joe Biden. He's outlawed the sale of new gas-powered cars in California by the year 2035. And after he made that edict, there was an energy alert 2 days later that said, if you own an EV in California, and only 2.9% of people who have cars do, if you own an EV in California, please don't charge it during peak hours because it stresses our state energy grid. Hello, but now he wants every single car in California to be an EV. I mean, you can't make this up.
This is insane. I'm telling you, I believe there's like got to be a puppet master in the background, just preparing to break our nation into tiny little pieces. And we're like the frog slowly boiling, or what is it called in Russia? The useful idiots. We're the useful idiots, like just going, okay, we're all going to get, EV vehicles, and then we won't be able to run our state and I don't know what's going on. Is this the reason why, like, you founded with others Old Glory Bank? I mean, I think this is so important because we're not only seeing it in our states where we're seeing the insane woke, in the political sphere, but we're seeing it sadly in our private sector and in our corporations and in our companies.
We absolutely are. For example, Bank of America, without a court order, Sarah, turned over records of anybody in Washington, D.C. who's one of their customers who went into a Dick's Sporting Goods store on or about January 6th for fear that he or she purchased a firearm. Turned that information over to the government. People have been debanked because of their relationship with Christian organizations or with the NRA. And that's what's going on all over the country. And that's why Dr. Ben Carson and John Rich and the former governor of Oklahoma, where we have a physical branch, and I started Old Glory Bank. So you will not get debanked. It's a full service online thing. We've got debit, we've got credit. It's business, it's consumer. Anything that you can get with your regular bank, you can get it through Old Glory Bank. But it's a bank that has values that you like. Privacy, security, liberty, that's what we're all about. And so I'm urging people to open up an account. And by the way, if you go to oldglorybank.com, open up an account, and when you get your debit card in the mail, activate it, you'll get a free copy of the book that Sarah and I are talking about, As Goes California, My Mission to Rescue the Golden State and Save the Nation. By the way, Sarah, I've just started a podcast like yours, except mine is on Twitter and on the various platforms where you get podcasts. It's called The Larry Elder Show, We've Got a Country to Save. And I'm just doing it for now once a week. So I'm urging people to go and check it out.
Okay, that's it. I got to come on your show one of these days. I've got to come on I love this. I'm so excited about that. And I'm excited about Old Glory Bank. By the way, Border 911, the foundation that I am a part of, I'm a team member of Border 911. We bank with Old Glory Bank. I just want everybody to know that we bank with, I'm not just bringing Larry on. I mean, I absolutely believe in this. I absolutely believe that we have to start thinking outside the box because I saw it. It was happening to everyone. It was happening to General Mike Flynn. There were others. I remember there was something that was going on with Donald Trump Jr. And there was just, and I find it incredible that in a society, we're a republic for as long as we can have it, we're a republic. And we have companies that are supposed to be about, incentivizing, making money, competition. They're not supposed to be telling us what we should wear, how we should think, who we should like, how we should live. It shouldn't be that way. But you
mentioned Donald Trump Jr. I believe it was in Missouri where he's putting on a town hall. And PayPal
How's it?
refused to process the tickets of people who wanted to go. We have something called Old Glory Pay, which is our version of PayPal. So that won't happen to you if you bank with us.
Oh, Old Glory Pay. Okay, that's
Right.
awesome. I'm going to actually get that right now. So I'm not joking. I am sick and tired of this. I couldn't believe what was happening in our country. And I couldn't believe what was happening when I saw it in Canada with the truckers when I was down
That's
there
right.
for Sean's show. And I remember people were literally getting their bank accounts frozen. They weren't allowed to move money out. They weren't allowed to move
Right.
money in. They were following people. And by the way, I'm probably one of the lucky ones, but I was in DC. I didn't even know what was happening on January 6th. I didn't even realize. Actually, I was covering something completely different. And I'd gone down to DC and I thought about that. I thought about the fact that I was just down there, surprised to see everybody down there. And I was there for a very different reason. But what if? What about
Yeah.
all the people that were just there shopping or visiting, had
Right.
no idea what was going on? And even if you were participating in it, our government should not be allowed to do that. We're not the
Absolutely.
Soviet Union.
Absolutely. And regarding what happened in Canada, don't think it can't happen to us. Remember
Right.
when Letitia James and ended up getting that $500 million deal against Donald Trump? A lot of truckers said, we're not going to go to New York City anymore. We're just not going to go. You want to treat Donald Trump that way? Most truckers support Donald Trump. We're not going to go. And I tweeted,
Right.
careful what you're saying, because when they shut down the accounts of Canadian truckers in Canada, don't think they can't do that here. Make sure you bank with Old Glory Bank. We're not going to do that. Our mission is the Constitution. No law-abiding customer is going to be debanked the way they're doing it with some of these other larger banks.
Hey, this administration wants you taxed to the brink, under the thumb of the IRS and controlled with the digital dollar. That's why thousands of hardworking, patriotic Americans, including myself, are turning to Goldco. Listen to their current offer. You can get a free 2024 Gold Kit and learn how to possibly get $10,000 in bonus silver as a listener of this show. You just can't beat that. They've helped people like you and me place over $3.5 billion in gold and silver. And you know what I say all the time, and all of my guests on this show have warned you about. You need to diversify. You need to diversify your funds, because we don't know what's going to happen in the world, and we don't know what's happening with this crazy administration. Protect your family's financial future and freedom. Get started today at Sara, SARA-likesgold.com. Get your free gold kit from Goldco and learn how to get $10,000 in bonus silver. SARA-likesgold.com. That's SARA-likesgold.com. As of this Friday, on Friday, it looks like that Trump may be able to hold off New York from seizing his property by Truth Social going public. That's
Sarah, when you have people like Mark Cuban, who does not like Donald Trump, and Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank,
right.
who's not politically, to my knowledge, out of the closet with any kind of party, you have people like that saying this is absolutely outrageous. What's happened to Donald Trump? I've never seen anybody that persecuted since you know who.
Right.
And the two-tiered system of justice. What's going on in Florida when Joe Biden had documents all over the place and had them ever since he was a senator out of a skiff, which by definition is a violation of the Espionage Act. And then what Alvin Bragg is doing in New York when Donald Trump allegedly called the hush money payments legal expenses. Same thing Hillary did when she and the DNC paid for the Steele dossier. They referred to that as legal expenses. She got a slap on the wrist by the Federal Election Commission. And regarding January 6th, Donald Trump hasn't even been charged with insurrection, let alone convicted of it. None of those who have been arrested for that riot, and there was a riot, have been charged with insurrection. And you have states like Maine and Colorado attempting to keep him off the ballot. It's outrageous. And I really believe this is probably the most consequential election we've had maybe since the Civil War. And this country's on the brink. And if you can weaponize the IRS, weaponize the DOJ, and go after a specific individual, and people like Letitia James and Fonnie Lewis and Alvin Bragg promising to get Donald Trump, which in my opinion is a violation of the canons of ethics. A prosecutor is supposed to do justice, not go after, not to get people. So this is just outrageous. Where's the ACLU when you need them? Where's the American Bar Association when you need them?
Where is the ACLU? Right. Where's the American Bar Association? Why is our system being weaponized against us? And I want to ask you this because I'm stunned that there's so many of these attorneys that have become, I don't know if they actually believe in what they're doing or if they're just the useful idiots or if they know the direction they're taking our nation. If you look at Leticia James, if you look at everybody who's been involved in persecuting President Trump, and if you look at our bureaucracy in and of itself, you brought up Hillary Clinton, but what about, the FBI and the high echelons of the FBI? What about, the CIA and Brennan? What about, James Clapper?
Yeah.
These were people that I interviewed in the past when I was just a good old journalist, doing my job. And I could not believe it anymore. I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. It is the reason why I started to speak out. It's the reason why I'm more of an investigative columnist now and I have a podcast and I'm not doing the same type of journalism because I couldn't understand what was happening to our country. Do you think they actually believe that they are doing something that is right? Or do you think they fundamentally know that they are trying to change this nation?
I think they've convinced themselves that Donald Trump is Hitler personified. I think they believe that they're doing God's work by stopping what they consider to be a dictator, a tyrant, a fascist from taking over again. They're that deluded. There is something called Trump derangement syndrome, and maybe someday Pfizer will work on a vaccine to cure it. But this is just what's going on here. You've got 51 intelligence officials. You mentioned James Clapper. He's one of the ones that signed that letter claiming the Hunter Biden laptop story had, quote, all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation, close quote. You have Mark
But they
Zuckerberg.
all knew it was lies, Larry. They all knew it was lies, and nobody charged them. Not the Department of Justice, not Bill Barr. Nobody charged them. It was basically treason. If you ask me, he's a duly elected president. If you're spreading a disinformation campaign against a duly elected president of the United States of America, by the way, it wasn't just in our country, it was global. You're literally putting their life in danger and you are trying to remove them from office.
And Sarah, I think this is important. Trump has been accused of trying to steal an election by basically saying that Vice President Mike Pence had the power not to certify certain states the third week of January in 2021. The Democrats made exactly the same argument when Al Gore was defeated by George W. Bush in 2000. They tried to decertify Florida. Fast forward 4 years later, W gets reelected. They try to decertify Ohio. 30 House members, including Benny Thompson, the chairman of the so-called Insurrection Committee, joined along with Barbara Boxer, sent from California, to try to decertify the election in Ohio, claiming without any real evidence that the Debo voting machines had been tampered with. And then in 2016, they challenged more states, 9, than Donald Trump did when he allegedly lost. He challenged 6. Nobody accused him of being election deniers. Hillary ran around for 4 years, the entirety of Trump's term, referring to him as illegitimate and saying the election was stolen. Nobody called her an election denier. Donald Trump exercises his First Amendment right to complain about Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin and other states, and he's perceived to be an election denier, and he's undermining the foundation of our republic. It's enough to make you want to vomit. We've got to take back this country, and I really am hoping that Donald Trump can prevail in 2024 in November. I'll do everything I can to make sure he gets back in office.
I absolutely agree with you. I think there's no other alternative. I think he will be a phenomenal president if he is reelected. And I think he'll clean up Washington, D.C. Do you think that he'll continue to gain more growing? And we're seeing that right now, growing support between Black and Latino voters. I know I'm seeing it in the Latino community. I wish I saw it as much in the Hispanic and Latino community as I'm seeing it in the Black community. But do you think it'll continue to grow within the next 8 months?
It's changing. Look, this guy secured the borders. And contrary to popular belief, Latino voters don't want open borders either. It's not just the fentanyl. It's not just the resources that we're spending. There was a report done by the Civil Rights Commission some years ago, and it found out there were 1 million fewer Blacks working because of the presence of illegal alien labor. And the presence of illegal alien labor puts downward pressure to the tune of almost $2,000 per year for people who are Black and brown living in the inner city, the very people that the left purports to care about.
That's just incredible. And that's the reality of it. That's the reality for everybody living throughout the country, especially, if you're thinking about middle class or underprivileged communities where people really are suffering the most. And especially with inflation, I don't think anybody in Washington, D.C. who lives in that bubble really understands what it's like to go to H-E-B here in Texas and look at your grocery prices just go through the roof, or Stater Brothers in California, and, go get a gallon of milk and, you're going to know what the prices are like, even when you go to the gas pump or when you're at the grocery store. They don't seem to know it. But Larry, you do. You understand what is happening in this country better than almost anyone else, because for crying out loud, you're living in California. And just as your book says, as goes California, you're like, wait a minute, you guys are 10 years behind. You didn't see this coming.
Sarah, people are spending $1,000 a month more for the same goods and services that they bought 3 years ago. Or do you have $1,000 more in your paycheck per month? The answer is no. So you are clearly worse off now than you were when President Trump was in office.
Clearly, we are worse off now, but we've got an opportunity this November to change that. We will change that. I wholeheartedly believe in the American people and in the voter. And I believe that we are going to see such a surge at the ballot box in November that we are going to remove the puppet master and the puppet from office and put somebody in that we can count on to save our nation. Thank you so much, Larry, for being a part of the Sara Carter Show. You are awesome.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. God bless.
Thank you so much, Larry, for coming on the Sara Carter Show. I look forward to getting my Old Glory Bank card in the mail and being a part of such a great endeavor that you have made possible for American people who cherish and love freedom. Please make sure you subscribe to the Sara Carter Show on your favorite podcast app. It helps us keep the show free and really gives us a boost in the algorithm. If you're watching on Rumble or YouTube, give us a like and a follow there as well. Thank you so much. Follow me on Truth at Sara Carter Official, on X at Sara Carter DC, and on Instagram at SCarterDC. God bless you. God bless our great nation. God bless the state of California. It really needs it. And God bless the great state of Texas.